Hello everyone, welcome back to Evoverse. This time Evoverse will recap the movie from 2007 titled The Morning Forest. The movie tells the story of an old man named Shigeki and a nurse named Michiko who struggle to find the grave of Shigeki's wife. They end up embarking on an exhausting and enlightening 2-day journey in the forest. How is the next story? Let's review the storyline of this movie. We remind you all what we are going to say. This is a spoiler. For those of you who don't have a problem with spoilers, let's continue the story and enjoy. The movie begins by showing the scenery of a village far from the city. Then we are also shown an old man named Shigeki and he is brooding. But this man is not alone, he is in the care of the elderly or a nursing home. Quite a lot of elderly people are here with various stories of their own. The nursing home in the village is chaired by a woman named Wakako. She is assisted by 2 nurses, one of whom is a new nurse named Michiko. Michiko's first day on the job is filled with activities as a nurse for the elderly. When it gets late, she goes home on her bicycle to return to her home. When she gets home, Michiko spends her time praying for her son who has passed away. On the second day, Shigeki gathered with other elderly people for an enlightenment session. Shigeki's gaze at all times was just a blank look. He always wondered to the monk, "Am I actually still alive?" Then Michiko was told by the monk to hold Shigeki's hands and feet. Michiko was also told to give words of praise to Shigeki, in order to let Shigeki know that he was still alive. During the writing session, everyone was told to write their names on paper. Michiko also wrote during the session. But Shigeki crossed out Michiko's middle letter. From that scribble, Michiko's name became Meiko. Immediately Michiko was confused why the letter C on her paper was scribbled. Shigeki was also told that the nurse's name was Michiko. But still, Shigeki said that Meiko was the correct name. The monk asked, "What's wrong with Meiko?" It turned out that Meiko was the name of Shigeki's wife who had died 33 years ago. All this time all Shigeki had in mind was his wife's name. Then Michiko was seen brooding in front of the window. Her husband always blamed Michiko for the cause of his son's death. Michiko's son died because he fell off a cliff, and at that time Michiko could not hold his son's hand. Michiko's husband still does not accept the death of his only child. On the third day, all members of the nursing home celebrated Shigeki's birthday. It was seen that Shigeki began to smile during the photo session. But Shigeki suddenly remembered his wife. Until now Shigeki has not been able to accept his wife's departure. Michiko, who was there, also felt sad seeing Shigeki's condition. When it was late at night, Shigeki just stayed in the room looking at his wife's picture. Not long after, Michiko asked permission to enter the room because she wanted to clean up Shigeki's room. Michiko also found a bag that Michiko thought was trash. But Shigeki immediately grabbed the bag and pushed Michiko to the ground. At that moment, Michiko was driven home by Wakako. Michiko's hand had to be bandaged as a result of being pushed by Shigeki. In the car, Michiko apologized to Wakako because she felt she failed to make Shigeki feel comfortable. Wakako also said, "You don't need to apologize because there was nothing wrong at all." On the 4th day, Michiko arrived at the nursing home. She saw Shigeki, who was up in the tree accompanied by Wakako. Not long after, Shigeki fell from the tree. Immediately Michiko panicked and intended to help Shigeki. But Shigeki instead ran away. Michiko continued to chase Shigeki, who ran further and further. It turns out, Shigeki was hiding on the plantation. It was moments like this that made Michiko and Shigeki become close again. On the 5th day, Michiko was trusted to accompany Shigeki for a walk. In the middle of the trip, the tire of the car Michiko was driving went into a ditch. Inevitably, Michiko had to go down to find help. She told Shigeki to stay in the car and not go anywhere. When Michiko returned, Shigeki was no longer in the car. Immediately Michiko panicked and looked for Shigeki. Michiko continued to look for Shigeki until she screamed. Then Michiko saw Shigeki on the watermelon plantation. She approached Shigeki, who was picking watermelons, but Shigeki moved away from Michiko. Shigeki, who continued to run away, in the end had to fall. As a result of falling, the watermelon that Shigeki was carrying also split just like that. Shigeki immediately fed the watermelon to Michiko. The sun was so hot that Michiko was exhausted. Then Shigeki continued to walk into the forest while being followed by Machiko. The two of them continued to enter the forest and get farther away from the village. So far away, cell phone signals were not detected in this place. Shigeki, who continued to walk without stopping, was finally exhausted and unable to walk. Machiko told Shigeki to rest for a while. But Shigeki did not answer anything. Machiko also asked Shigeki why this bag was very important. Shigeki replied that the bag he was carrying was very important, even more important than himself. They continued their journey not knowing where to go. They found a small river and Shigeki still wanted to cross the river. Machiko, who was worried, did not allow Shigeki to cross. But Shigeki did not care about Machiko's concern. As a result, Machiko was sad and crying. In rainy conditions, Shigeki could not bear to see Machiko, who continued to cry. Both of their bodies were soaked by rainwater. Machiko always followed wherever Shigeki went. She never complained about Shigeki's behavior. What Machiko did was actually out of the context of the nursing. But Machiko still cares and feels very concerned about Shigeki. At night, the two of them stayed in the middle of the forest while lighting a campfire. The air was so cold that Shigeki shivered and fainted. Likewise with Machiko, her wet clothes made Machiko only wear an undershirt without a jacket. Not long after, Machiko called Shigeki, but Shigeki couldn't answer. Then Machiko immediately approached Shigeki and gave him some water to drink. Shigeki kept shaking from the cold. Machiko rubbed Shigeki's arm, but it didn't work. She also took off Shigeki's shirt so Machiko could rub his whole body. Seeing Shigeki still shivering, Machiko couldn't help but take off her shirt. She also hugged Shigeki from behind while rubbing her body against Shigeki. The morning came. Shigeki woke up first, then Machiko. Then Shigeki saw the figure of his wife in front of him. Shigeki did not realize that this was just a hallucination. Shigeki invited Mako to dance in the middle of the forest. Machiko, who woke up, also saw Shigeki, who only danced alone. Then they continued their journey again in the forest. A bag that was so heavy and did not know what it contained was carried by Machiko, because Shigeki could not carry it. They found a big tree. Shigeki seemed to know something about this big tree. Then Shigeki remembered that this tree was a road sign that they would soon arrive at his wife's grave. Machiko, who heard that, also shed tears. She knew how loyal Shigeki was to his wife. Age and physical limitations were not a reason for Shigeki not to love his wife. Not far from the tree, they both found the grave of Shigeki's wife, which was only marked with a piece of wood. Shigeki also took his bag and took out a white package. When opened, the contents of the package were a small box that could play music. Then Shigeki also took out a lot of notes from his bag. The notes belonging to Shigeki were written from 1973 to 2006. More precisely, the notes had been made by Shigeki for 33 years. Apparently, the note was deliberately written by Shigeki every year, because he had been lost for so long in search of his wife's grave. In the end, in 2006, Shigeki and Machiko managed to find his wife's grave. Then Shigeki slept on his wife's grave. At that time, Machiko immediately played the music box brought by Shigeki. Knowing Shigeki's extraordinary struggle, Machiko was reminded of her dead son. But at least, she had managed to prove that her deep love was able to make Shigeki reach his wife's grave. Machiko's figure in this movie is not only an ordinary nurse, but she also proves that her affection for Shigeki is like her affection for her son. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and see you on the next movie recap.